Good morning, friends. Okay, so today I want to talk about spoiled rice and masks. And so, what the heck does spoiled rice have to do with masks? So, think of when you've cooked rice and you put it in a pot, you cooked it, and you forgot all about it. And here you are now, 3 days later, you come back, you haven't even opened the rice, and when you in the 3 days, and when you open up the lid, you look down, and the rice is filled with fungus and mold. You've ever done that? So what the heck does that have to do with a mask? Well, what happened was that when the rice was cooking, all the air came out, and all this hot air blew everything out of the cover. And then it stopped cooking, it cooled down, and when it did that, it sucked all this cool air back into the pot, and all these spores and stuff like that in the air came down in there and started to grow in the rice. And because it's a good media to grow, then a few days later, since we didn't open it, it was all boiling and everything all cleaned up, grew all this fungus. So what does that have to do with the mask? Well, most of us will have these kind of masks where we put it on and we wrap it around like this, or maybe the type that goes on like this, and even if you had the ones that tie on like this, when you do that, you're having to fuss with it, but it looks like this. So here we are wearing this thing, and imagine this is the cover, and it's when you breathe out, it's blowing all this air out, but when you breathe in, it's like a little vacuum nozzle. It sucks all the air around here. You can even see it fogging up my glasses as the air is moving around. It creates this vacuum in here. So that's what's happening when we wear a mask. It's mostly when we're coughing and sneezing, and then we blow it into there, and we catch some of the larger particles, but all that small stuff is still flying around. And once it's in the air, if we're in the near vicinity and we're doing this, then it creates this vacuum that slips around into here and sucks all that in. And then it's uncomfortable for most of us, and so we're playing with it and adjusting it, and we get all snot on the inside of it and it gets all dirty, or we have to tie it, or it moves around, and then we have a hard time breathing. And if you get the big N95 special filtration filtery types, the air is so tight around here, it's harder to breathe, and then we fuss with it more, and that's part of the issue. So one issue is all of that tiny particles are still floating around and being sucked in. And yes, when we are sick and we're coughing out, yes, it stops or minimizes some of the spread. But then as soon as we start to play with it and adjust it and wipe out all the stuff, or clean it up off our face and then throw it away and get a new one, now we're doing a lot of touching of our face, and where all this infection is going into and coming out from. And that makes it maybe a little worse. So masks, a good idea when you're sick, trying to minimize the spread. Not so great maybe when we're playing around with it a lot, or we're in an area where there is infection, maybe not that much. I would call it false peace of mind. We don't get that much protection. So similar to the rice pot, where you cook it and all the air comes out and it goes back in, even though it's covered in that tiny little crack, it gets around the edges of it, and then we get exposure to infectious agents. So masks, questionable value in the situation. So have an awesome day. Talk to you next time.